Hare Krishna, good evening, good afternoon, good morning from wherever you're watching from in the world. Um, Welcome to the final session of the 11th annual BBT Africa Conference. My name is Mukundangri Das, and I'll be the facilitator for this final session of day one of our conference today. And we are so excited to have a very, very special guest in and amongst so many special guests that we've had throughout the day. And for those of you who have missed our previous sessions, don't fear. They are on our Facebook page and will also be on our YouTube channel, BBT Africa. So I'd just like to take the opportunity to introduce our next guest. We are pleased and very grateful and very honored to have His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj joining us today. Maharaj is a disciple of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Maharaj is presently based in California and is now focusing on one of the main personal instructions he received from Srila Prabhupada, and that is to write. He is the author of Watering the Seed, Many Moons, and the forthcoming, I'll Build You a Temple, the Juhu Story. And he is the editor of Life's Final Exam and is working on several other publications, including books about his search for a spiritual master and his early days in the Boston Temple, his travels with Srila Prabhupada in India, and Vaishnav holy days. He has become renowned for the austerities he has accepted, his loyalty and dedication to Srila Prabhupada's mission, his ability to inspire and engage important members of our society, and most of all, his care for devotees around the world. So, Maharaj, we are so grateful to have you along with us. Of course, today we're speaking about something that's very close to your heart, close to Srila Prabhupada's heart, and that is the topic of books are the basis. And I'd just like to hand over to you now so that you can guide us through this meditation of why books are the basis and why they're so close to Srila Prabhupada's heart. Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you. So I'll just begin by singing the Mangalacharana prayers to invoke auspiciousness. Of course, there's already great auspiciousness just by the topic and the assembly. And then I will speak. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatham Etam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Savana Kavita Shri Vishakhanitam Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Transcendental Book Publication and Distribution Ki Jai. So the an initial impetus to Srila Prabhupada's emphasis on publishing and distributing books came from his Guru Maharaj at Radhakund. It's described in Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, when we were living in a rented house, if we could collect 200 or 300 rupees, we were living very nicely at Uttadanga. We were happier then. But since we have been given this marble palace in Bagh Bazaar, there is friction between our men. Who will occupy this room? Who will occupy that room? Who will be the proprietor of this room? Everyone is planning in different ways. It would be better to take the marble from the walls and secure money. If I could do this and print books, that would be better. Then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said directly to Srila Prabhupada, I had a desire to print some books. If you ever get money, print books. At Radhakund, beholding his spiritual master, Abai, as he was then, felt the words enter deeply into his own life. If you ever get money, print books. So Mukundagiri Prabhu mentioned my forthcoming book about Srila Prabhupada and Juhu, entitled I'll Build You a Temple, the Juhu story. And with Srila Prabhupada and Juhu, I experienced personally his emphasis on book distribution. There were many complications in Juhu with getting the land in our name and then getting the permission to build. And at one point, Srila Prabhupada said, if necessary, we can simply make Hare Krishna land into a bus stop. We can have many buses for distributing our literature, and those buses can go traveling and distributing books, and they can come back to Hare Krishna land, the bus stop, and the devotees can spend a few days and become rejuvenated and get more books and then go out again. So after some time, a few years, Srila Prabhupada, anyway, India in general and Juhu in particular was very challenging. And after some time, Srila Prabhupada decided to try Bhagavan Das, who was the GBC for France, to see how he would do as the GBC in Bombay. And so Brahmananda Prabhu wrote Bhagavan on behalf of Srila Prabhupada. And in his letter, he wrote, in this connection, Srila Prabhupada said the following, quote, as far as I have studied, there is a clique of some enemies to acquire the land and spoil the whole scheme. So we have to save ourselves. Even if there is no sanction to build further buildings, we should maintain what we have got. The book distribution program must be thoroughly organized. So now I'm coming to a very important statement about Srila Prabhupada and books. Just before 6 every morning in Juhu, I would walk up the stairs to Prabhupada's room to accompany him on his morning walk. But when another devotee and I went on the day of Rama Ekadasi, actually it was the day after Rama Ekadasi, we were surprised to find the doors, both to his quarters on one side and to his staff's quarters on the other, locked. I wasn't sure what to do, but I gently knocked on both doors. After a minute or two, Prabhupada's secretary, Harikesh, opened the assistant's door just a little and said that Prabhupada had stayed up all night and completed his translation of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, that at the end he had written the most beautiful glorification of his Guru Maharaj, and that he was in an ecstatic mood and said that we should celebrate by having a feast. So I'm going to read some excerpts from Srila Prabhupada's concluding words, because they really, they trace the history of his writing and publishing books, and explained the importance of it, handed down to him by his Guru Maharaj. So in his concluding words, Srila Prabhupada wrote, today, Sunday, November 10th, 1974, corresponding to the 10th of Kartik, Chaitanya era 488, the 11th day of the dark fortnight, the Rama Ekadasi, we have now finished the English translation of Sri Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami's Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita in accordance with the authorized order of His Divine Grace, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, my beloved eternal spiritual master, guide, and friend. In 1936, just before His Divine Grace passed away at Jagannath Puri, I wrote him a letter asking what I could do to serve him. In reply, he wrote me a letter dated 13th December 1936, ordering me to preach in English the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as I had heard it from him. After he passed away, I started the fortnightly magazine Back to Godhead sometime in 1944 and tried to spread the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through this magazine. After I took sannyas, a well-wishing friend suggested that I write books instead of magazines. Magazines, he said, might be thrown away, but books remain perpetually. Then I attempted to write Srimad Bhagavatam. When I had published Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto in 3 volumes in India, I thought of going to the USA. So this is very significant that Srila Prabhupada did not want to come to America without books. He had no money. He was allowed to bring a very limited number of rupees, which converted into $7, which Srila Prabhupada said was hardly a few hours spending money in New York. But he had his books. And because he had his books, he had confidence about the success of his mission. And later, when devotees were, I suppose, doing research or gathering information for Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, they visited some of the bookstores that Srila Prabhupada had personally approached when he had first come to New York. And the proprietors of the bookstores remembered Srila Prabhupada. He would come and give them prasad, samosas, and his books, those 3 volumes of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada, even in India, in Delhi, he was personally distributing his Back to Godhead. And now in New York City, he was personally distributing his Srimad Bhagavatam. So when I had published Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto and 3 volumes in India, I thought of going to the USA. By the mercy of His divine grace, I was able to come to New York on September 17th, 1965. Since then, I've translated many books, including Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, a summary, and many others. In the meantime, I was induced to translate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita and publish it as an elaborate version. The work on this translation began about 18 months ago. Now, by the grace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and His divine grace, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, it is finished. And now Srila Prabhupada thanks his disciples. I have to thank my American disciples, especially Sriman Pradumya Das Adhikari, Sriman Nitai Das Adhikari, Sriman Jayadwaita Das Brahmachari, and many other boys and girls who are sincerely helping me in writing, editing, and publishing these literatures. His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was very fond of seeing many books published to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. Therefore, our society, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, has been formed to execute the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So in other words, Srila Prabhupada is saying, in effect, that ISKCON has been formed to publish books. At least that is one of the major purposes of ISKCON. And then Srila Prabhupada concludes, on this occasion, therefore, I request my disciples who are determined to help me in this work. And that's all of us, disciples, grand disciples, and well, in a way, everyone in ISKCON is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. On this occasion, therefore, I request my disciples who are determined to help me in this work to continue their cooperation fully, so that philosophers, scholars, religionists, and people in general all over the world will benefit by reading our transcendental literatures, such as Srimad Bhagavatam and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So coming back to Srila Prabhupada and book distribution in relation to Juhu, at one stage, a British devotee named Prabhavishnu came to Bombay to do service. For some time, he was actually the vice president under me. But at a certain stage, he was became more inclined to go for some preaching activity. And he asked Prabhupada if he could get more into book distribution. Srila Prabhupada said, all right, manage the temple for some time and then you can go on book distribution. I'll show you how to put the books in colleges and libraries throughout the country. Prabhavishnu had never imagined that kind of book distribution. The library party hadn't started in India, but Srila Prabhupada could see the potential. And he said, you stay and manage for now, and you'll get the chance. And after some time, the library party did begin. And Prabhavishnu got the chance to go, and they traveled all over India and put Prabhupada's books in universities and libraries. Another aspect to book distribution, and I saw that in the little quotations from Srila Prabhupada, about he had hatched a transcendental plan to generate funds by the distribution of books. So in relation to the Juhu project, at a certain time we got the land in our name and we got the permission to build, and we hired a very big contractor. And they had a certain requirement, a large requirement of funds every month. As Gopal Krishna relates, as quoted in my book, Rameshwar was a very strong motivator of book distribution. He was one of our best Sankirtan generals. He started writing Kirtan newsletters to devotees all over the world, how Prabhupada wanted the Bombay temple built, but that it could be built only if we increased book distribution. Because unless we increased book distribution, we couldn't send the required money to Bombay. So the whole world went on a marathon to increase book distribution, to generate funds so Rameshwar could send money to Prabhupada in Bombay for construction. And there's another exchange with Srila Prabhupada much later in 1977 when he was ill in Vrindavan and was asking us to make arrangements whereby, ISKCON and the BBT could continue after his departure. And after we had finished discussing Prabhupada's will with him, Rameshwar informed Prabhupada about developments in the distribution of his books. Quote, I just received a telegram from America about the book selling. It is from our main warehouse in Los Angeles. They report that there has been an increase this month over last month. For Back to Godhead, the increase has been 70%. For small books, it has increased 45%. For medium books, such as the Krishna Trilogy and Ishopanishad, it has increased 45%. And for the hardbound books like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, it has doubled, a 200% increase. And Prabhupada said, that is very good. And I said, a 200% increase means it's tripled. A 100% increase is doubled. So a 200% increase is tripled. And Prabhupada said, very good. And Tamal Krishna said, simply by your word, Srila Prabhupada, it is happening. And Rameshwar said, everyone is now wearing these double it buttons. The whole movement is simply thinking of doubling book distribution. And then here, what Srila Prabhupada said at the end is very, it's a very concise, very concise statement. He was very sick, he wasn't really speaking much. But he said, yes, this is our real mission. Yare deka tare kaha Krishna Upadesh. Whomever you meet, give him the message of Krishna. That's all. This is the opportunity of speaking the words given by Krishna. He's referring to the books. Krishna, Dvaipayana, Vyas, or Krishna are the same. Then he said, so that is all right. Now no more talking, because he was quite ill and weak. So, yeah, these are some of my memories of Srila Prabhupada related to his writing, publishing, and distributing books. As many of you may know, Srila Prabhupada hardly slept. He would retire at 10 at night and wake up at midnight. He would rest for maybe 2 hours and translate throughout the night, and then, yeah, as I mentioned, around 6 o'clock, we would take him to go for his morning walk on Juhu Beach. So I believe that Mukundangri Prabhu wanted some time for questions and answers. I've made my basic presentation, and I'm willing to take questions and comments.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for that presentation. And thank you for really bringing to light and highlighting the story behind the statement that we often hear. Books are the basis, but when you actually hear the endeavor that Prabhupada put in to make sure that we have these raw materials, these books, to be able to go out and present to the world, I think it hits home more as to why it is so important for us to go out there and deliver this message. And there are a few... Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to add one thing, and that is that we should read the books. Srila Prabhupada said of the devotees, Sankirtan will keep them happy, and reading my books will keep them. In other words, keep them in Krishna consciousness. So, I think that's that's an important point. You know, he labored so hard to write these books. As I mentioned, you know, he would sleep hardly 2 hours and then get up in the middle of the night because he was so busy during the day. Although sometimes he would try to do some translation during the day, but mainly at night. For us, he said that his books were mainly, they're for everyone, but they're mainly for his sincere disciples. So we should honor his labor of love and read the books also. Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj. Like Maharaj has pointed out that we'll have an opportunity for questions. For those of you who are joining us via Facebook, feel free to post your questions there. And for those joining us on our Zoom webinar, you're more than welcome to post your questions in the Q&A chat box as well. And Maharaj, there's already a couple of questions coming in, and one of those questions or reflections that came in from what you were saying in relation to Srila Prabhupada's note in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, glorifying his Guru Maharaj, is and you made the point that having translated these books gave Prabhupada sort of the confidence to be able to venture out into the West, to come to America and basically inaugurate the Hare Krishna movement. Now, when we sort of link that back to ourselves, how can we sort of cultivate that very same confidence, in the sense that how do we begin the process of first tapping into Srila Prabhupada's mercy through his books before we begin the process of going out and delivering the mercy to others?
Actually, both giving mercy and receiving mercy go together. When we preach, we get mercy. When we get mercy, we make advancement in Krishna consciousness, and then when we make advancement in Krishna consciousness, we preach and give more mercy. Yeah, but I think it's important that devotees read the books and understand the value of the books. And like Srila Prabhupada said, if we go out and distribute books and someone asks, well, what's in the book? And the devotee says, well, I don't read the books, I just sell them. That's not very good. So we should read the books and appreciate by personal realization the value of the books and the value of following the instructions in the books. And that will give us impetus and confidence to go out and distribute the books.
Thank you, Maharaj. There's another question here from Facebook. Someone has asked, and this is a nice segue from what you've just answered right now. How do we develop taste to read books?
That is a very good question. And of course, the answer is in Srila Prabhupada's books. Specifically, I'm referring to the Nectar of Instruction, Srila Rupa Goswami's Upadeshamrita. And he says, Syatnama Krishna Charitadi Sutapta, that the transcendental, name and character and activities of Krishna are very sweet, like sugar candy. But because we are afflicted by the disease of avidya, or ignorance, which is compared to the disease of jaundice, we don't taste this. We don't taste the sweetness as it is because our taste has been, you could say, infected by the disease. I actually had jaundice in India, and it's true that sweet things taste bitter when you have jaundice. But the Ayurvedic cure for jaundice is sugar candy. So even though it tastes bitter, you take it. And as you take it and your disease is cured and you return to health, that sugar candy gradually tastes better and better. And then when you're completely cured, you can taste it as it is, which is sweet, like nectar. So even if we don't have taste, still we should chant and hear, we should read the books. And by chanting and hearing or reading as a type of medicine, will be cured of that disease of jaundice or avidya, and we'll be able to actually relish the sweet nectar of the books. So yeah, we might not have taste in the beginning, but if we regularly read, gradually the taste will develop. We'll become freed from that disease of avidya, which means like ignorance of our identity, first of all. Yeah, we identify with the body, so, we're not so interested in the books. But by reading the books, we'll get cured of that disease, and then we'll have taste.
Thank you, Maharaj. There's a stream of questions flowing in, so we'll continue just to
Sure.
take them and hear from you. There's one that's come in here, and it reads, what mood should we have when reading Srila Prabhupada's books? What is always core to the objective?
Yes. Actually, His Grace Burijan Das, Srila Prabhupada's disciple, wrote a very nice article or essay called Prayerful Reading. And the idea is that when we read, we should be praying to the book, to Srila Prabhupada. And in Srila Prabhupada's books, we get not only Srila Prabhupada, we get the whole parampara. We should be praying to get instructions from those books that will help us and that we should apply in our lives. So we shouldn't take what's in the books as a sort of neutral philosophy, which it is in a way, but we should take it as personal instruction to us. And we should think, what is Srila Prabhupada saying to me? What does Srila Prabhupada want me to get from this? Recently, there was I think a Vaishnavi retreat in which the Vaishnavis discussed reading Srila Prabhupada's books and how to get the most out of reading his books. And they had different exercises. This is for, of course, some exercise you can do on your own and some you can do when you're reading with other devotees. What is Srila Prabhupada actually saying here? Different devotees can say what they understand Srila Prabhupada to be saying. And that also is like, churning the ocean of nectar and bringing out more.
Thank you, Maharaj. That was beautiful. There's another Facebook question here. Very simple, very straightforward question. how does one remain enthusiastic in book distribution?
Oh, well, Srila Prabhupada has commented on enthusiasm in general. And he said that the way to maintain one's enthusiasm is to follow all the regulative principles. I remember visiting Vaisheshika Prabhu, staying with him at his home in Burlingame, California. And at that time, he was writing his book, which now has been published, Our Family Business. And he was saying that one of the main points in his book was that that the enthusiasm to distribute books should come as an overflow of the bliss that the devotee experiences from his or her sadhana. And I saw that staying with Vaisheshika Prabhu. He had a very intense morning program at home, very blissful. And so when he said that, our enthusiasm to distribute books should come as the overflow from the bliss that we get from our sadhana, I could really see how that applied to him. And I would say it would apply to anyone. So yeah, again, the two are very closely interrelated, our own development of Krishna consciousness and our sharing of Krishna consciousness.
Thank you, Maharaj. There's still a number of questions, but I want to also take the time to highlight and focus in on your upcoming book, I'll Build You a Temple, the Jew story. First thing is this instruction that Srila Prabhupada has reiterated to you a number of times, and that's the instruction to write. As it's of course from the BBT's perspective, there's always the side of the distribution, but we're always looking for authors to write on their meditations and their reflections on Krishna consciousness. Could you perhaps give us a little bit of your experience of why that instruction in particular from Srila Prabhupada has been so important for you and your own reflection and meditation on the principles and teachings of Krishna consciousness?
Well, I came to ISKCON in Boston, and Satsvarupa Das Adhikari then was not only the temple president in Boston, but he was also the editor of Back to Godhead. And so he always wanted articles. So I wrote one about the guru. And, but naturally there is a delay between when the articles are submitted and the magazine is actually published. And by the time the magazine came out, I was already in India with Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada received the issue. And then he called to see me. And he said, I've read your article in Back to Godhead. It's very nice. And you should write. You should take up writing as your first business. And over the years, Srila Prabhupada repeated the instruction that I should write. Even though I had so many other responsibilities, he sent me a letter in which he said, that you should write. Um, I'll just read it. I should be able to find it. Oh, anyway, I can paraphrase it. It says that, yeah, in the midst of your heavy duties, go on writing something glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Writing means, to share your realizations, to put your realizations in print. And then he said, this writing is necessary for everyone. So yeah, he encouraged me to write, and then specifically about the Juhu saga. After great struggle, we finally got the land in Prabhupada's name. And so, yeah, Mrs. Nair came to the small cottage where Srila Prabhupada was staying near the Hare Krishna land. And she signed the documents, then Prabhupada had us serve a feast. And then after everyone had left, he reclined on his bolsters and he said, it was a good fight. Someone should write a book about it. And then later, I think maybe in 1977, very close to the end, he was discussing the history of the Jew project with some disciples. And I think Tamal Krishna Goswami said, someone should write a book about it. And Srila Prabhupada said, yes, it is worth writing history. So the combination of Prabhupada's instructing me to write as my first business, and he is saying someone should write about the history of the Juhu project. And on top of it all, my being the only devotee who was really there in Juhu from the beginning to the end. So it all added up that I should write that book. And now it's basically finished. It'll be printed by BBT Australia under His Holiness Devamrita Swami. Yep.
Right. We're looking forward to reading the book, Maharaj. I particularly resonated with what you're saying about Srila Prabhupada saying that this writing is for everyone.
Yeah.
And I as a journaler, I found that encouraging. Maharaj, there are a number of questions. I just want us to perhaps tackle at least two more, if you'll indulge us.
Oh, sure.
And the first of those two, I think, is a very relevant one for the time that we're living in right now. And in fact, a number of these questions that have come in speak on the same theme. Of course, we're right in the midst of a global health pandemic.
Yeah.
And going out into the streets and physically associating with people is restricted in so many ways right now. And yet we have this instruction. Books are the basis. And hand in hand with that, we've had our traditional means of distributing these books, which is basically hand-to-hand distribution.
Yeah.
This is a discussion and a question that has sort of like been strung through as a golden thread right from the beginning of our sessions today. But I think a lot of devotees would love to hear your own perspective on what are some of the initiatives or that we could undertake during this period. Would you focus this period on more internal cultivation, or should we also work in cultivating innovative means to guard and distribute books digitally, etc. So yeah, I think the devotees on this call and joining us on Facebook really want to hear your own reflections over the last 3 months and what we can do to fulfill Srila Prabhupada's instruction on this matter.
Yeah, we can still distribute books even if we don't go out on the street and meet people. Srila Prabhupada had a friend in Bombay named Kartikeya Mahadevia. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada would actually stay at his home. And so Kartikeya Mahadevia, the reason I mention it, I think it's something that we can do during this period, is he would send letters to his friends and acquaintances offering, I don't know if he would ask them first or whether he would just send a Bhagavad Gita, but maybe asking them if they would like a Bhagavad Gita, or he would just send them. And I've heard of devotees now during this coronavirus pandemic lockdown who are doing that. They're phoning people and arranging to send them books by mail. There are also libraries. One disciple in Mumbai wrote me that she's really into book distribution, by the way, and she was sending books to libraries. Of course, that raised the question because she had heard that Srila Prabhupada said that people should pay for the books, so they appreciate them. But then again, Srila Prabhupada also said that as long as someone pays for the books, someone can sponsor them, that would also be all right. So she's been getting sponsors and, sending books to libraries and even to people in the neighborhood where she lives. So yeah, we can, as Srila Prabhupada would say, tax our brains, how to distribute the books under these circumstances. It can definitely be done by mail. I think that's the safest way.
Yeah. And just on that particular question, tomorrow we are having another very special guest. His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu, who will be speaking on the topic, this very topic, which has been raised throughout the day today. And the topic is book distribution in all circumstances. And Vaisheshika Prabhu is world renowned for his tireless efforts in distributing Srila Prabhupada's mercy through Srila Prabhupada's books. So please join us for that tomorrow. But coming back to today and Maharaj, just wrapping this up over here, there's last question, which I thought ties up today's discussion and meditation with you really nicely. It's sort of a two-part question, and it reads, please can Maharaj share his first experience of reading Srila Prabhupada's books? And more generally, what is Maharaj's approach to studying Srila Prabhupada's books?
Nice. Well, I met Srila Prabhupada in person before I had read any of his books. Many devotees come from the books. In my case, I met him in person first. He came and gave a lecture at my university. And then, the next night I went to the temple and I saw the books. But there were not many books back then. But I took the books. There was just Easy Journey to Other Planets and the old Macmillan Gita. And that might have been, and then the three cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam. But I guess, because of his recent departure, I'm thinking about His Holiness Bhakti True Swami Maharaj. And he came to Krishna consciousness from the nectar of devotion. He had been looking for a guru, and he was disappointed in everyone he saw. He almost gave up hope that he'll ever find a genuine spiritual master. And then he got the nectar of devotion, and it was like everything in that book was true. Like he understood God is a person, Krishna is God, and he stayed up late reading the book. And then, he got up early and was reading the book again. And he had a dream of Srila Prabhupada. And it was in his heart also from reading the book. This is my spiritual master. So, I just thought, to share that. And as far as ongoing reading, I always read some every day. And, sometimes, mainly Srimad Bhagavatam these days. But once I asked Srila Prabhupada about reading his books, of course we've heard, first is in terms of advancement, first Ishopanishad, then Bhagavad Gita, then Srimad Bhagavatam, then Chaitanya Charitamrita. But I personally asked Srila Prabhupada, and he said they're all nectar, and wherever you have taste, you just read that. So yeah, but I do read something every day, and not to discourage people from reading, but to maybe encourage them to speak. Srila Prabhupada also said that speaking for 30 minutes is equal to reading for 2 hours. So, because when you preach, when you speak, you get realization, and you also get inspiration to read more, because the substance of what you're preaching is coming from Prabhupada's books. So, it's the same idea that developing one's own Krishna consciousness and preaching go together.
Well, with that, Maharaj, I just want to extend my heartfelt thank you to you again. This session, for me personally, has been so enriching. And I'm sure it has been very fulfilling as well for our viewers from across the world on this Zoom session, those watching from Facebook, those watching on the GBC Strategic Planning streaming network as well. We just want to thank you from wherever you're joining us from. Thank you again, Maharaj. I hope this is first of many appearances at our annual BBT Africa conferences, because I think just having your wisdom shared is inspiring to us in so many ways. So we would like to extend that invitation to you as well next year to join us and inspire us again with your wonderful stories, Srila Prabhupada, and your dedication to him. So thank you.
It's an honor and a privilege and a pleasure. I look forward to it again.
Yeah. And tomorrow we'll be back live at 10 a.m. Central African time, and wherever you are in the world, you can just reference off of that. And we'll be starting with a very, very, very special session. One of my personal favorite speakers on Bhagavatam, His Grace Konteya Prabhu, and his topic will be a reflection on Bhagavatam. So I'm looking forward to that so much. I love listening to Konteya Prabhu. So please do join us for that, and join us for the other sessions that we have lined up for you tomorrow. And I wish you all the best for the remainder of the day, and we'll catch up tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada Ki,
Jai.
Transcendental Book Distribution Ki, Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.